Actually, I'm just going to start over and just say, hi, this is Jen from modernmedicinelady.com, and welcome to my blab. It is the dark moon in Pisces, and tomorrow is the new moon in Pisces at 8:55 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this is a really good time for doing deep, deep emotional work. Pisces, which is the sign ruled by Neptune, which is, if you think about the god of the sea, and the sea is that represents the subconscious and the emotions and the depths of our feelings. And Pisces is the sign that helps us to access our dreams, access our feelings, and also to transcend boundaries, which sometimes makes for challenges for Pisces, because transcending boundaries, sometimes it's all about how do we set limits and what do we want, and how do we define our choices as opposed to going to whatever limits somebody else provides for us. But when it comes to working with this Pisces moon right now, this dark moon in Pisces, it allows you access to feelings and information about what's going on underneath the surface for you that's a lot further beneath you than you, or underneath than maybe your conscious mind has access to. And I really think that this is hi there, Rachel, welcome to Blab. So I really think that I'm just talking about this new moon in Pisces tomorrow and how we're in the dark moon in Pisces right now. And it makes for an optimal time for doing really deep forgiveness work. And I think that the first step with forgiveness is to acknowledge the places where we need to recognize and forgive ourselves, even before we start worrying about forgiving anybody else. So I have my tarot deck with me in case anybody wants me to pull some cards for them and give them some guidance about that. And I figured we could talk about, hi there, Melissa, welcome, welcome. So glad to see you. And happy dark moon in Pisces. I've just been saying to people that with this dark moon, which means that the moon is still waning right now, it has not reached the new moon. So this is the time where everything is just letting go and releasing. And it's a really, really good time for clearing out the emotional cobwebs, because that Pisces energy just gives us a capacity to really get access to our core, our deep inner emotional core. And doing forgiveness work, particularly for ourselves, particularly for the things that we carry around regrets about. And I think at this point in my life, one of the things I've realized is, I would say that it seems to me that probably 80% of the time when it comes to self-forgiveness, it's really about choice. It's not necessarily about doing something, making amends, or doing something different. Maybe if there's something that you've done, you can do a little bit of soul searching and see if there's something that you can do to make something right. But most of the time, it's water under the bridge. It's something that's already happened. And it's really about letting ourselves off the hook and choosing to do that. And I've been working with the Hawaiian forgiveness prayer, which is Ho'onoponopono, and that starts with I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me. And I like to add I forgive you. So just working with that, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I forgive you. And another affirmation that I just really love to work with myself is I forgive and release the past, and the past forgives and releases me. So this is just the perfect evening to think about, what can we let ourselves off the hook about? What can we forgive ourselves about? How can we just really make the choice that we don't have to be carrying around just buckets and buckets of guilt for the rest of our life just because we made a mistake or we did something stupid or we might not have handled a situation as well as we could have. There's a point where we just really can choose to say, okay, enough already. So I think I've done my spiel about forgiveness for a little while, and just how incredibly vital and valuable it is also that this is a really good time with the moon being in Pisces and being in this time of moving towards the new moon, the building time, that we're still in the releasing, that this really is a great time for doing that deep, deep, deep inner soul searching and that inner release and that inner forgiveness. So, hi there, Carrie, it's so good to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And I keep on repeating myself and saying that with us being in the dark moon, waning moon in Pisces, now is the perfect time for self-forgiveness. And I was making a plug for the Hawaiian prayer of Ho'oponopono, and that, or Ho'onopono, I believe is how you say it. And that is, I'm sorry. It's I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. And then, of course, I add, and I forgive you. So would anybody like me to pull a card for them? You can type in a question. Yes, I thought you, Melissa, I knew it was going to be you first. Okay. Okay, and then Carrie, I'll pull a card for you too. Oh, thank you so much. Yes. I'm wearing my mineral-based gluten-free makeup from Green Apple Lipstick. Actually, not Green Apple Lipstick, Red Apple Lipstick. They specialize, they're a little company out of Texas that specializes in doing mineral-based makeup and gluten-free, and it's really fun stuff that I really enjoy. So, anyway, let me pull a card. Okay, so I'm going to pull a card for you, Melissa. And the card that I got for you is the Six of Pentacles reversed, which is interesting because I believe that was the card that came up. I think it was for, anyway, I can't remember who it was for last week, but it came up last week. The Six of Pentacles is a really, really good card in terms of flow and abundance and resources. If you have been having some issues lately where you feel like money is getting blocked or getting locked up, where you're like, where is it? Why isn't it flowing as easily as I want it to be flowing? What is happening with this? Come on, universe. I've been putting it out there. I've been making all these prayers. I've been asking for all this abundance. Why is this not happening? This card, when it's through, this card is all about the idea of money moves, and money moves when it flows. Money, that it's all about the idea of reciprocity, and that as we put things out into the world, we receive energy back in the world, and that we create this energy of give and take and exchange. And so I'm wondering if there is some kind of old fear or old idea going on in the back of your mind that is believing or thinking that earning money or receiving money has got to be hard, that it could not possibly be as easy as just simple, elegant, flowing abundance, that it is something where it's either got to be a struggle or there's some kind of magic, like really complicated formula, but that the idea that it could come really easily, that it could come really sweetly, that it's just a matter of sort of relaxing into it is kind of like, what? You're kidding me. It could be that simple. And so my sense is that there's probably some frustration that's going on right now around this process, and also that you're at a point now where you're seeing how your money story has been affecting the way that you are dealing with asking for money, the way that you are working, the way that you are pushing yourself to work harder than maybe you are really comfortable working right now, so that there's a fair amount of there's a dance going on. And I'm imagining that you've been reading the Barbara Stanny book, and so I'm suspecting that probably you've been doing a little bit of self-examination around how these money stories, particularly the money stories around struggle, are affecting you, and the way the idea that we must struggle as opposed to being able to manifest with ease and flow. The other piece of it, with this being the Six of Pentacles being the generosity card, is that I really like to think of the Six of Pentacles as being a card that is about, by putting our positive energy out into the world, and by being generous of spirit and generous of information and generous of content, that the universe comes back and blesses us. That sometimes that abundance starts with our expressions of gratitude and generosity, and then it comes back. But there's a really, really funny balance with that, because obviously this is not about giving away the farm. It is not about giving away all of the content, and it's not about coaching for free. That, I think, is just so incredibly important, of recognizing that we really want to be able to be generous of content, but at the same time, part of it is about being generous in supporting people and guiding them and steering them towards what will ultimately serve them better. So offering just a mediocre DIY solution when they can have even more support from real sincere hand-holding is an important part of it. So sometimes the generosity even comes in saying, you have these DIY options, and if you are really ready to take it to this next level, if you really want this to be even more magnificent, even more abundant, then these are ways that you can grow, and I can support you in this. So I've been yammering on about this particular card. I will say one more thing, which is that whenever I work with and look at reverse cards, I perceive them as being about internal process and coming to terms with something, as opposed to something that's necessarily happening externally. So with this being in the reversed position, this is really all about you integrating reciprocity, you integrating generosity, integrating that whole relationship around money coming easily, abundance coming easily, versus the idea of money and abundance having to be worked for really hard and struggling really hard to make it happen. So Melissa, did that make sense? Was that fitting? Yes. You just said thank you. So hopefully that made sense. Awesome. Yes. Okay. So Carrie, I'm going to pull a card for you. First, I'm going to shuffle the deck. I have Bob sleeping. Bob is my pug. I would lift him up, but he's sound asleep on the pillow next to me on the floor. Okay, let's pull a card for you, Carrie. Okay, this is the one that wants to, or is most obvious. Reversed Wheel of Fortune. Okay, so again, with reversed cards, this is often about internal process as opposed to external experiences. And when the Wheel of Fortune is upright, it can often be about opportunity, synchronicity, luck, good fortune coming your way, and also being balanced within good fortune, or sort of throwing yourself off or being kind of off balance with it. But with it being reversed, the way that I think about this is that I really think about the Wheel of Fortune as being about how do you come into your very core? How do you find your center? How do you find your way into a place of balance when the world is spinning around you and there's all kinds of things that are going on around you? Because the thing about the Wheel of Fortune, and obviously with this card, there isn't the classic image where there's like the people stand or the creatures standing on top of it. But the thing about the Wheel of Fortune is that when you're on the outer edges of the wheel, you are constantly having to basically run it like a hamster wheel in order to not fall off the wheel. And there's a great deal of effort that goes into staying on top of the Wheel of Fortune when you are focusing on it from an outer perspective and when you are sort of trying to stay on that outer ring of the Wheel of Fortune. And if you're not exerting a great deal of effort and a great deal of energy all the time, what happens is you slip, and then immediately the wheel kind of pulls you down and under, and you get whomped by the bottom of the wheel. So when you're working with the Wheel of Fortune from an internal place, and even, I think this is the lesson of the wheel, but it's about moving out of that outer section on the outer ring of the wheel and learning how to travel down into the center of the wheel, so that instead of you being sort of at the caprice or at the whim of the outer ring of the wheel, you're the fulcrum, you are the center, and you are the one who is making the decision as to what is rotating and turning around you, as opposed to responding to something other than yourself that the wheel is turning on. So this is a lot about how can you become your own axis point? How can you be thinking about your choices and being even more clear about what you want to create, so that everything is in response and in accordance to this fulcrum that you've created for yourself, that then the rest of the world and the rest of your experience is moving around. So I think that I had this thought come up, and now I'm like, how do I explain this? I think that this is very much about, for one thing, every action you take, the question is this aligned with my axis? Is this aligned with my core? Is this something that brings me closer to the point and to the core and the root and the purpose of what I'm doing? Or is this something that draws me away from this purpose and pulls me out to the edge of the wheel? And every single action, at least especially at this point in time, it's really important to be asking, is this choice something that reinforces my core vision and my core mission, or does it draw away from it? Does it take me away from it? And of course, being a sensitive, you're going to be picking, you can easily get pulled out of your center or pulled away from your core by the distractions of the world around you. And so that is the other piece of working with this idea of the Wheel of Fortune, working with fortune, is how do you continuously honor your own core and keep turning towards your own center and not allowing the the fears, the worries, the emotions, the intensity, all of the distractions that are coming at you from all around you to pull you out from your center. So that is what I would say, or that is the sense of what I am getting in regards to this Wheel of Fortune card for you right now, Carrie. Does that make sense to you? Excellent. Carrie is just saying that sounds just like what she's in right now. So, and this is the optimal time. Like we really have, like right now, it is 8:21 p.m. The moon is in Pisces, it's waning, and we have until 8:55 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when the moon goes new to work this waning moon, to release the shit that you do not need to be carrying around anymore. And to anybody who doesn't like swearing, sorry about that. I should have probably warned you. I've been working in a tattoo studio for a super long time. I swear like a sailor, and off-color language is known to come out of my mouth. So, but I make an effort, but every so often it does come out. Anyway, between now, we really have 24 hours to do the work of release, release, release. I would say drink lots and lots of water right now. Be really mindful of the ways that you're taking care of your body and you're honoring your physical needs. And again, working with the Hawaiian forgiveness prayer. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I forgive you. And then my own favorite affirmation, I forgive and release the past. The past forgives and releases me. Excellent. So right now, would anybody else like a card pulled specifically for them right now, or or Carrie and Melissa? Do either of you have? You would. Excellent. Welcome. Okay. And I see you are Goddess 364 according on this. You look like you may be Rachel, but I'm not sure. So yes, you are. Excellent. Hi there. Welcome. Okay, so I'm just going to pull a card for you. My first hit is that in your case, what is obvious is not the card. That the obvious stuff has not been amounting, like you've already looked at the obvious stuff. That's the sense I get about this. Okay, so I pulled a card. And my goodness, everything is reversed. But of course, it kind of makes sense that we're in the dark moon period and we're in the deep, deep, deep Pisces releasing. So it's all about what's going on in here, not what's going on in the outer world right now. So Queen of Pentacles, Woman of Pentacles is what I call her. I have made her the practicality card. She is the water of earth, which means that she is the emotions or the emotional relationships, sort of the emotional integration of the physical body, of the physical form. So I would wonder whether or not you've been dealing with either your own personal emotional, physical correlation right now with your body, where you're examining how is stress, how are certain kinds of concerns, relationships affecting your physical well-being, affecting sleep, affecting physical sensation, affecting pain. It may be regarding somebody else, but I would imagine that this is probably more about your own relationship between your emotional well-being and your physical well-being right now, and the way that your thought process has been affecting you. There's also, I really think of one of the things from a manifestation standpoint with the Queen of Pentacles is that, in my experience, she is a master manifester. She is damn fine at bringing things in. However, she is so good at bringing in the actual stuff that she doesn't tend to bother with the middleman of money. So one of the challenges with working with the Queen of Pentacles is that, in the same way that we live in a culture where success is it's very male defined and male driven. And so when a woman is looking at her success and looking at her life that is maybe more about contentment and delight and connections and relationships, we have these sort of, benchmarks, like this idea of, if you're earning, like, are you earning 6 figures? Are you earning 7 figures? Like, what is the number you're bringing in? This card, the Queen of Pentacles, doesn't always bring in her manifestation and bring in her abundance through money. As a matter of fact, it's almost inefficient. Like, she's so good at drawing to her what she actually needs that a lot of times that middleman of dollars and cents doesn't even happen. But if she's in an environment where she's been being told that the benchmark for success or the benchmark for prosperity is earning a certain number of dollars, earning a certain amount of money, she can feel like she's not where she thinks she should be, because she's metering or monitoring her success based on something that is not really relevant to her actual, to what she's actually really good at. And it's funny because, as I was saying at this very beginning of tonight, that that parity is the theme of tomorrow's International Women's Day. And the idea of parity is equal pay, equal compensation for equal work. And what's funny about this is that this is sort of saying sometimes we are looking for, or we experience abundance in a completely different form than sort of this corporate 6-figure, 7-figure structure that our society is regarding as success right now. So one thing I want to say in regards to this card is you are probably even further along in your process than you've been thinking you are. And if you start, I don't know whether you're doing any kind of abundance tracking right now where you're actually recording what's coming in on a daily basis. This is something that I learned a really, really, really long time ago, but it wasn't until I actually started working with some of Denise Thomas of LuckyBitch.com's principles that I really, really embraced the idea of daily money tracking, not the what's going out, just the what's coming in. And one of the things that she does is that she has 2 columns. One column is for the actual numbers, like the actual dollars and cents that are coming into you in all forms, every single, like a penny you pick up off the street, you record. But the other column that she has is all of the value that is coming into you. So for example, if you have a bunch of barters that you're doing, if you have a bunch of coupons that you've received, if you have people who are bringing you all kinds of gifts, if you have a bunch of exchanges going on, the value of these things needs to be taken into account too. And sometimes what will happen when somebody starts taking into account those things, suddenly they'll realize that they're actually grossing exactly what it is that they set their goal for and hoped that they would be grossing. It just happens that it's coming in the form of the actual need, not in the middleman of the money that you would then go and buy things with. Which actually leads me to a suggestion or an observation in regards to manifestation, which is that so often where we get stopped around manifestation is in the idea that it's the money that we need in order to achieve our goal. And when we start to think in terms of the actual goal, the actual desire, the actual result, and focus on that instead, we will have a much more direct line to our heart's desire and to our what we seek to manifest, as opposed to this idea of I need X number of dollars in order to manifest this thing. Like, for example, you wanted to say there's a concert coming into town and you really, really, really want to go to the concert. And it just so happens that, like, say you wanted like front row seats or something at this really fancy concert and each ticket is like $300 or something. So you have this idea and you need to bring yourself, your partner, and a kid. So you need to manifest $900 and you're thinking, oh my God, I need $900 in order to go to the concert. But there is a contest that happens to be happening on the local radio station, and they're giving away 3 free tickets if you happen to be the right caller. If you're thinking in terms of I am calling to me 3 front row or front section, front area tickets for this concert on this date, it is entirely possible that it is going to come to you in the most unexpected way. That does not necessarily mean that you needed to manifest this specific dollar amount in order to get it. And this is just an example of this, but this is an example, I think you can see how this can play out in so many other ways. Like even something like somebody wants to spend the summer at a beach house or something, instead of thinking about, oh, I need to gross or I need to manifest X number of dollars to afford it. What if you manifest these people who decide that they want to spend their, like these wealthy people who happen to decide to go to sabbatical in Europe or something, and they need a house sitter. And it just so happens that they have this magnificent, like gorgeous palatial estate that's on the ocean and they need a house sitter and you happen to be friends of theirs. There are so many ways that the universe will provide when you start asking for the specific thing or the specific goal, the specific desire, the specific wish, as opposed to the what you imagine is the necessary part of it. And I will say that in my experience with tattooing, and specifically with cover-ups, this is really something I've learned over and over again, is that when you try to think about how you're going to do, how something is going to be covered up, a lot of times people get really, really locked up in the how, and they forget to, and they get really, their creativity and their vision gets really bogged down in the idea of how am I going to make this happen? And when they stop thinking about how are they going to get it and just what they want is the end result, what happens for them is that suddenly that the possibilities become so much more open and the solutions are so much easier. And so what I do when it comes to this work is I recommend to people and suggest that people that they think about what they want and not how they're going to achieve it. And that is what I would really suggest in regards to working with this manifestation and working with this Queen of Pentacles card is, what do you want, not how are you going to get it? And then really thinking about just all of these goals, all of these ideas, all of these desires of what it is that you want. And then from there, you can start brainstorming about all of the different possible ways that something could come to you. I also want to make a plug for anytime you start thinking about solutions, anytime you start thinking about actions, thinking about at least 3 solutions or 3 ways that you could possibly access it. And ideally, even upwards of 10 or more possible things that you could do to help bring something into being. Because when we think in terms of 1 or 2 solutions, we tend to get locked up in it. But when we start thinking about multiple solutions, then the universe has an amazing way of opening the doors for us and allowing things to happen. So hopefully that was a helpful read of the Queen of Pentacles for you, and it made sense. So Kim, welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad to see you here. Would you like me to pull a card for you? Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that was perfect. Excellent. Yes, please. Okay, Kim, I'm just gonna. First upright card. So they're not all upside down. Sometimes when everything is reversed like that, I get into this place where I'm like, oh my God, did I just and I know, I mean, I have not righted this deck. I have not cleaned it up and put it all in one position in ages. So the fact that it keeps on showing up reversed cards, like I said, I think it really has to do with the fact that we're in the full moon, in the dark moon in Pisces, and this is the time for going deep within. So the 2 of Pentacles is the juggling card. This is about you're spinning a whole bunch of plates, Kim. You're trying to get a bunch of stuff up in the air, and it's all about that managing multiple things at the same time, managing multiple projects, multiple tasks, multiple priorities, like, you know, having 2 kids that both have needs and both have demands, and kind of balancing those 2 sides. And I would say in your case, I'm imagining that you're dealing with family balancing, business balancing, but I would be willing to venture that there's probably 2 business aspects right now that you're, excuse me, I just needed to swallow. There's 2 business aspects right now that you're probably really needing to kind of try to keep up. And a lot of what's going on right now is this sort of like, okay, I have these priorities that I need to be working with. What's the number 1 priority right now? So I would say in your particular case that triage is probably one of the words that would apply at the moment. That you know, just and prioritizing is the kinder way to put it, but triage is probably a little bit more accurate in the sense of that you're sort of looking at everything and you're going, what is the pressing need this very moment, and what needs to be attended to right now? And what I will say, what's exciting, hi there, Peekaboo, welcome. I'm reading a card for Kim right now. So what I would say is sorry, I just sort of dropped that saying hi, but triaging, prioritizing. What I want to say is that what's exciting about this is you haven't dropped shit. You're keeping this stuff up in the air. And I want you to give yourself a lot of credit for the fact that you are managing a lot of spinning plates right now, that you are managing to keep a lot of stuff up there. And I would be willing to bet you that if you looked even 3 years back, especially like 5 years back, and you think about what you are holding up and what you are managing to keep flowing and going, and you are managing to keep all running smoothly at this point in time, if you compared it to what it would have been like 3 to 5 years ago, you probably would not have been able to keep the pace that you are keeping right now. So this feels to me like it's very much a card that's validating and saying, you go, girl. You are managing to keep things afloat. You are managing to keep things up. And you are probably going to want to give yourself a little bit of a break at some point in the not terribly distant future, because it takes a certain amount of focus to keep things balanced and to keep things juggled all the time. And there's a point at which you need just that reset moment or that reset button and that rest or that retreat in order to be able to comfortably return and keep that juggling going. So I'm also imagining, though, that there's that sort of anxiety or concern of, if I stop right now, will I be able to get the plate spinning again? So there's that whole thing of, I've got it up in the air right now, I don't necessarily want to put it down quite yet. And my sense is that it is not the exact moment to be putting things down yet. You've got sort of this spin happening, things are going, and intuitively and logically, my sense is that you have some benchmarks that you know you want to be using as your basis for when it's time to be giving yourself a little bit of a retreat, giving yourself a little bit of a breather, giving yourself a chance to kind of do a reset and reevaluation and let it be good. But there's a couple things where my sense is that you're kind of like waiting for certain things to come through before you're going to like let yourself take that breath and put the plates down for a little while. But I definitely really want to say that you are managing to sustain the balance, and that's something that you deserve a great deal of credit for. The other thing I'll say about the symbolism of the Two of Pentacles is that the Pentacles are an earth sign, so it's about pragmatic, practical, physical things in the world that you're managing. You're standing on the earth plane, but the Two of Pentacles has got the ocean behind it. And the ocean is represents emotions, represents the subconscious, represents our dreams. So the thing about the Two of Pentacles is that there's this, you're managing and balancing all of this stuff that's very much about the physical, pragmatic world, but right behind that, right behind you is the subconscious. And it's really a fine dance between the sense of the subconscious waves kind of coming up and lapping up against the back of your feet. And that the way that your subconscious can be affecting your choices and affecting your actions and affecting your ability to juggle and balance these pragmatic details, because that subconscious experience is just sort of like lurking at the back. And so I think that what's really important is to be mindful of the fact that your subconscious is back there and that your subconscious is affecting you, because when you're trying to just pretend it's not there, it can really influence the way that you are. It can really influence the way that you're acting in the physical world if you're not acknowledging the fact that there is this ocean of subconscious input going on right behind the surface or right beneath the surface. So hopefully that has been helpful and has made sense and has been useful to what you were thinking about. So oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad. Kim was just saying so aligned and that I'm amazing. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, so as I was saying, we've got this amazing, amazing time right now for this dark moon forgiveness work and for this period of deep, deep, deep releasing, and really taking an opportunity to think about how can we forgive ourselves? What do we need to let ourselves off the hook about? What kinds of stuff have we just been letting haunt us for years? And I don't know about you, but like, especially when I was younger, I was one of those people who could lose sleep at night imagining how I could have said something differently during the day, especially like in high school and college. Like if I flubbed a line or, you know, or didn't necessarily like have the right response to something, I could just spend so much time and energy just thinking or imagining how I could have handled it differently. And I just really do believe that forgiveness, more often than not, 80%, 90% of the time, forgiveness is just simply, it starts with the choice to do it. And I will also say that I am of the opinion that forgiveness does not make something wrong right. If something is wrong and something is unjust, forgiveness simply releases the emotional charge that we carry with it. It does not change the fact that something was not okay. And we can hold ourselves accountable to behaviors or choices we made that were not optimal, and we can still choose to forgive ourselves. We can still acknowledge that we did something, recognize that something was maybe not the best or most aligned choice in our life, and say, okay, I did that. I acknowledge it. I recognize it. It did not serve me well. And I can let this go, and I can make a choice to handle something in a really different way when I approach it the next time. So, and also when it comes to forgiveness for others, particularly the really nasty stuff and the really, you know, a lot of times I think the things that happened in childhood and teenage years and young adult years, but any time that we've really been betrayed, we've really been hurt, we've been violated, forgiveness is not going to make it right. And that's not the point of forgiveness. Forgiveness simply sets us free from the emotional entanglement and from the emotional intensity of feeling that indignation, that it's that knowing that we don't need to hold on to the emotional indignation to prove that it was wrong, because it just simply was wrong, and we deserve freedom from it anyway. So that's my spiel for right now. Melissa has a fantastic question, and that would be, what would be a suggested tool on how to let go for someone struggling with letting go? Awesome, 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 awesome question. So there are a number of tools that I think can be really, really effective. There is, of course, the really painful, really uncomfortable, really difficult approach of holding on for dear life and white knuckling until the universe basically whacks you over the head and you just have to surrender. I've certainly done that a few times. So I would say that misery sometimes can be a very, very powerful tool for letting go. And I know that I've had that experience. I don't necessarily recommend it, but that seems to be one of the first things that for so many of us, it's like when things just get so painful or so uncomfortable or so difficult that we just basically have to surrender. And that really reminds me of when I was a lot younger and I first was hanging around in the sort of spiritual metaphysical world and doing a lot of personal healing work. And I remember being in a place where I was so anxious and I was so worried. At the point in time, I didn't really understand what it meant to be an extreme empath. And if you go to my website, www.modernmedicinelady.com, you'll notice on the upper right-hand corner, there's a questionnaire that says, what empathic type are you? And it is a it is a questionnaire. It's a quiz that you can take that's got really in-depth questions for helping to evaluate where you fall on the intuition, psychic, and empathy spectrum. And some of us are what I would call extreme empaths, and I am one of those people. And when I was younger, I was a person who picked up everything that was around me. I was constantly picking up other people's thoughts. I was constantly picking up other people's emotions. I was picking up what was going on around me. So not only was I dealing with my own personal drama and the fact that I was a super emo art chick, because I mean, I was in art school. It was the like 80s. And I mean, oh my God, like, you know, if you looked at that point in time, I think if you looked up emotional, you would have found my picture in the dictionary. So I was dealing with my own emotional stuff, but I was also dealing with the fact that I was picking up everybody else's stuff around me. And I remember being in a place where I was super, 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 super overstimulated, and I was really feeling a lot of distress. And this person who was very wise, who I still know to this day, an amazing human being, he just looked at me and he's like, just let it go. And I was just like, what are you talking about? Let it go. What? Like, how do you let it go? Like, I do not understand this thing that you are talking about. You know, it was like you practically, I had to like pry my fingers apart. Like they were like rigor mortis had set in. I was clutching so desperately. And at that point in time, the only tool I had was prayer. The only thing that I could do was get into a position. And for me, the most effective way for me to pray is to get down on my hands and knees, like to get down in child pose and like put my head on the ground, like forehead on the ground, arms on the floor, legs on the floor, and just basically go, please, 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 please help me because I cannot do this myself. Please take this from me because I cannot let it go myself. And please help me to surrender this. So I'm going to offer you my personal prayer that I have been working with for years. What I discovered a long time ago, because, you know, you'll hear our fine people talk about willingness in the metaphysical, spiritual recovery world. And you'll hear people discuss this idea of willingness. And what I found was when I prayed for willingness, like this steel door, this trap just shut. And I was just automatically like, willingness, schmillingness. I don't want to do that. And what I discovered for myself was that there was this remarkable key that came when I prayed for the willingness to be willing. Now, I want to also offer a caveat, which is that God, as you understand God, higher power as you understand higher power, resonant field as you understand the resonant field or the field of potentiality, the source, the force, whatever you want to call it, the divine presence, the mystery, God, goddess, Thor, whatever. It's the name of this does not matter. And you could even surrender it to light bulb or I love lamp for that matter. But for me, getting down and just praying, but what I discovered was that praying for the willingness to be willing was the key to letting go. So what I would start to do was over the years, I developed a prayer, and that is, Mother, Father, God, Christ Jesus, who reveals Christ within us all. Grant me the grace to receive your grace, and please show me the beauty way. And please grant me the willingness to be willing to walk that way as it is revealed. And if I'm that's my big prayer. If I'm in a place where I'm just really screwed, please, 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 please grant me the willingness to be willing to surrender this shit. Please, please, please grant me the willingness to be willing to give this behavior up. Please, please, please grant me the willingness to be willing to stop obsessing about this issue. So that's the first step for me, is praying for the willingness to be willing and asking for that, and also tuning into divine grace, because grace, which is so remarkable, is unearned. We do not need to be worthy of grace. Grace is unconditional, and grace is available for all. So what this is about is knowing that we are worthy, that just by the nature of being alive and human, by not even human, I mean all creatures, all beings, everything is worthy of grace. And grace is so beyond anything that we can manufacture or cultivate or need to finesse or finagle or manage. And from that, just allowing ourselves to know that we receive grace, and that from that receptivity to grace, we can then find the willingness to be willing to do what is necessary. So that is my very first and primary key to letting go. The second key to letting go is breath. Using my breath. Every single time I breathe in calmness and ease. Every single time I breathe out, I am breathing out that which is no longer serving me. And I just use my breath to deliberately and consciously let it go. Another key is using water, washing my hands. Like literally, if you're carrying stuff around in your body, standing at the sink, washing your hands and letting the water wash away the extra stuff and letting it go. Letting it literally, like imagining that you're letting it be released from your hands and you're just letting it go. Sometimes if I'm in a particularly clutching place where I've really been in what some teachers of mine, Ali and Evie of Spirit passages, would refer to as a DNA cramp, you know, where there's this clutching happening. I have actually, even at times, like literally clutched my hand like this and then peeled my fingers apart so that I can literally let, metaphorically, but literally in my hand, let go. Because if I'm in that clutching place, sometimes letting go is just so incredibly crucial and so incredibly important. And if this is, even though, for in case you were wondering what's tattooed on the side of my hand, and of course this is upside down and backwards because it's the mirror of the screen. But anyway, even though for EFT, which leads me to the other tool that I like to use for letting go, which is EFT. The beauty of that is if there's any kind of an emotional charge that you have around a memory, an issue, a feeling, you can specifically draw that thought or that specific issue to your mind and then move through by starting on the karate chop point and then tapping through the top of the head, eyebrow points, side of the eyes, under the nose, under the lip, collarbone points, and then under the arm, kind of on the side of your rib. And that was a very, very fast run through. And instead of necessarily going into all kinds of detail about what it is that you want to be letting go of, sometimes if it's a particularly emotionally fraught issue, give it a name. Give it a neutral movie title name that you could use to just remind you of what it is that you're working on. Evaluate how intense the feeling is before you start tapping on it. Like look at it and go, okay, I am on a scale of 0 to 10. This is a freaking 64. Like I am that pissed about it. And then recognize what the emotions are, acknowledge the intensity of the feeling, give it some kind of a title so that you have a container for it. And then even though I am tapping on, let's say I'll use a movie title that somebody used a long time ago for canning tomatoes. I am going to love and accept myself anyway, and I'm willing to let this go, or I forgive and release it. And so we tap 3 times on either side, and then canning tomatoes, canning tomatoes. It's safe for me to let this go. Canning tomatoes. I've been carrying this around a really long time. I don't need to be carrying this anymore. Canning tomatoes. I also just really do want to say that one of the things that I really think is crucial. And one of the challenges for us human beings is we get so invested, I think our egos get so invested in the idea that because we had to struggle for a while, if we release the struggle, that somehow invalidates the fact that we had been struggling. So one of the big challenges is giving ourselves permission to release something after we've invested a great deal of time and energy into struggling over it. It's almost embarrassing. Like if it's like, you mean I could have chosen to forgive like 6 years ago? And I guess I would just say, I personally believe that we choose to forgive, we choose to let go, we choose to release when we are ready, and we don't do it until we're ready. And so we can honor and love ourselves and forgive ourselves for the fact that we were not ready to forgive, that we were not ready to let go, that we needed to struggle about it until we were ready to stop struggling about it. And that, I think, is an important thing to be able to honor, but to lovingly allow ourselves to release the struggle when we're finally ready for that, and to allow ourselves to choose forgiveness and to let ourselves off the hook for the fact that we had struggled for as long as we did. But I really also believe that part of that is about the fact that it's okay to essentially believe or know that there is a mark on the sort of the permanent record or the Akashic record. If something was wrong, it's going to go down on the records as having been something wrong. And ultimately, our souls may understand that we learned from it, that we got a lot of things from it, that there were all these other things that happened. But there are certain things that, in my personal opinion, are fundamentally unacceptable or wrong. Like cruelty is cruelty, and abuse of children is abuse of children, and abusing helpless animals is abusing helpless animals. Like there are things that it's like, no, this is not okay. And I really believe that being able to accept that that is known and recognized, and that the universe is not letting something off the hook, there's still accountability for inappropriate choices, even after forgiveness, even after releasing the struggle, even after letting go. It's just, as I was saying before, we get to be free so that we don't have to be suffering with that emotional struggle and suffering with the burden of the pain that we carry around. So at this point in time, it is 9:02, and I can stick around for a few more minutes if anybody has any other questions, or if anybody else would like any other information or a card pulled or anything. And Melissa, thank you so much for that amazing question. You really you ignited me and really drew out answers I didn't even know were inside of me. So I thank you so much for prompting me with that amazing, amazing question. So, oh, thank you. Oh, such a pleasure to hold space. Such a pleasure. So I'm going to pull one last card for this week for all of us as sort of a, what do we want to focus on? What do we want to intend? What do we want to be thinking about as we move from this dark moon into the new moon tomorrow, and then working with this waxing moon going into the first quarter for next week. So we've got that building up energy coming our way. But like I said, you got exactly 23 hours and 50 minutes to do your cleaning up your side of the street, forgiving and releasing and letting things go. The Ho'oponopono of the forgiveness prayer of the Hawaiian forgiveness prayer. I love you. I'm sorry. I forgive you. Please forgive me. So, final card. how lovely is this? Upright world. So the world is just such a divine, divine card. And the world is our oyster, is the way I always like to think of this card. It's also so much about, when we think about the world is as big as we can conceive it is. The world is as magnificent as we can imagine it is. We are limited by our thoughts. We are limited by our own doubts, by our own ideas of I cannot. Sometimes we need to honor our need for rest. Sometimes we need to honor the fact that there's a part of us that wants to put brakes on for various reasons, and that it's important to really respect that and recognize what's going on underneath the surface with that. So I think that's an important thing, is to honor where we are at any given point. And the World card reminds us that this universe is so incredibly vast. There is so much happening. And if you start thinking beyond the physical plane and you start imagining sort of from a quantum perspective, everything is energy, and energy can be dramatically changed and shifted. And where we direct our attention, what we focus our attention on, that is what we create. What we resist persists, but also what we perceive, we conceive, or we will create. We create things based on the direction that we are looking and what we are looking for. And I will just offer you this exercise that I was doing earlier this week that was based on an exercise in the book by Pam Grout called it's a book called E Squared. And in that, she has this one exercise where you make the decision that you're going to see a certain color car. And she suggested like sunset beige, but I decided I wanted to see electric blue cars, and blue cars. Like I just wanted to see blue cars. So I made the decision, I did a little prayer, I thought about it, and then I said, I'm just going to see blue cars. And so for 2 days, it was like I was in a sea of blue cars. Like every car, or almost every car that was around me, was in some degree or spectrum of blue. Like all of these, like sky blue, electric blue, cadet blue, teal blue, slate blue, and then there were some silvery gray, and there were some navy, dark blue, a few black cars and a few white cars, but it was like this spectrum of ocean. And I was driving in this field of blue cars. And it was like I had decided that I was going to be perceiving this particular thing. And then it was almost like the universe just kind of like calibrated to what it was that I was looking to perceive. And I've been in the process of shifting away from that, and I'm working towards green cars because eventually I want to go to yellow cars. And so it's starting to move, and now I'm noticing the green cars. But I recommend you try it. Like make the decision that you're just going to notice all the blue cars, or you're going to notice all the green cars, you're going to notice all the yellow cars, and start counting them and look at the number of cars that, or you're going to notice yellow butterflies, something that just whatever it is that you decide you're going to notice. Because what happens is when we entrain our mind towards looking for something, it is amazing the way that we start seeing it everywhere and in everything. So I encourage you to think about, what do you want to see in the world? What do you want to look at? What do you want to notice? What do you want to have before you? And choose what your filters are going to be letting in, and what you are calling towards you, and work with that. So I hope that you have a wonderful 23 hours of clearing between now and the new moon. And also, if you have not already done it and you're please go and sign up for my mailing list by going over to modernmedicinelady.com, and you will be part of my bi-weekly new and full moon newsletters. I send out private like exclusive videos just for the people on my mailing list about working the new and the full moon, with little tidbits and spiritual advice and inspiration and all that fun stuff. And then also there is the What Empathic Type Are You over on my website, where you can look at where you fall on the spectrum of extremely psychic, like massively psychic sponge, to very, very pragmatic and sort of like almost obtuse to all of that. So, but where you fall on the spectrum, and I would be willing to bet that every single one of us here is in the, sort of in the top, in the top two categories for sure. So, ladies, it has been such a pleasure spending time with all of you. Thank you so much for showing up and being here. And to all of you other people who have been here who I can't see because you don't have a Twitter handle, I am extremely thrilled that you're all here and that you've been watching today. I hope you have found this helpful. It has really, really been a pleasure sharing this time with everybody. I will be back next week for right before the first quarter. And then I will let you know that my husband's birthday is on the 21st, and we are going to be taking him out to dinner. So I will not be here for that. Although I don't know, maybe I can even see about whether somebody wants to be a guest person and come visit or something like that. So anyway, I wish you all a magnificent week, and until we connect again, peace.